Okay, so since I started last time with Glenn Beck on Fox News, he's also been a professional comedian who is more of a conservative, right-wing Republican. And so then he accused Obama of being a socialist and a communist. And, it is true that under Obama, government intervention in the economy has happened. I was saying that that doesn't necessarily equate it with socialism. And I've also said it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. I don't. It's difficult to try to explain these concepts without letting any kind of political bias happen, because ultimately, we can make socialism look really bad or really good or whatever. I'm hoping I'm at least addressing something to you in terms of, in the more of an educated way, and to realize that right now we're talking about theories, and later on we'll have an opportunity in this class to talk about where things happen like in actuality. Now, actually, let me clarify. When we're talking about child labor, when we're talking about the exploitation of the workers, that were, all these chapters about the working conditions of the poor in the urban centers, that is not debatable. What's debatable, okay, is did it have long-term bad effects or better? How much of the population benefited and how much suffered? And what is the totality that we should kind of categorize the benefits of industrialization and capitalism now, but even specifically then? So, in a sense, the socialists, they didn't have a country to be criticized for doing socialism wrong. They were people criticizing countries that they saw doing capitalism wrong, or wrongs coming out of capitalism. I want you to realize that socialism and communism, whether those are bad or good, were responses to capitalism, not the other way around. Think about it that way. And then now, as we see examples in the real world of socialism put into place, we can critique it just like capitalism on our own, but we find that it's still not that easy, as historians as well. Now, I still haven't given you a definition of communism yet, and went there, but I want you to see this clip from Bill Maher. Bill Maher, I'm not advocating as well. He's considered more of a liberal, not even leftist, but a liberal pundit. He's also very anti-religion, and I don't agree with him on a lot of things. But in this panel here, they're discussing the topic of socialism. And so here's a little different perspective in modern day pop culture, 2011 anyways, okay, just to give you an idea. So here we go.
In this country. This could be a teaching moment, could it not, for the teabaggers, or maybe all of America, who don't understand that socialism doesn't mean we're going to come to your house and make you work on a collective farm. Right. In Europe, socialism is just another political party. It just means that government takes over certain things like hospitals and prisons and the military that shouldn't be, schools that should not be run for profit. But yeah.
As a European on the panel, I was going to say it's actually simpler than that. I think socialism is really about recognizing that there are limits to what the market can do. The market is very useful. At times it works very well, but it doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't.
But it goes to the magic trick of arithmetic and fact. The same way they spend arithmetic and fact, they redefine words. Socialism, we've redefined capitalism. All of these actual words that have real meaning. They're actual things. They're real, basic, actual words, just like 2 + 2 actually equals 4. And as soon as we've lifted all of that,
you're giving it even more credit than it's due. It's not like people here even give a definition to socialism. They
think
don't.
It's communism.
They just hear it, and it's evil.
Well, it's an ism.
Right. It's
It's bad.
Exactly.
Right, it's communism. They think it's communism, and they're going to come and take
nobody
it.
likes isms, okay? They don't like cap.
Okay, so that kind of sums up in what I said in my last lecture. And actually, I found this actually after. This is the first time I just watched it, or after I gave my last lecture. And so I kind of summed up some of the things that I was actually talking about with you. Okay, so then what's communism? Well, long story short, okay, every communist is a socialist, but not every socialist is a communist. Oh, okay. Every communist is a socialist, but not every socialist is a communist. What does that mean? Oh my gosh. Well, socialism has ended up meaning, for the most part, that a shorthand to say that, kind of like what was talked about in that video, a person believes in free markets, they believe in the private sector, in capitalism and industrialization, but they believe that there's certain industries that need to be socialized. So it's a shorthand way of saying medicine, law and order, like big need things that are a part of, like the 911 call example I had. All the important things that are needed, education, need to be handled by the state, because that's collectively something that we should be able to take care of. And then sneakers, t-shirts, cars, all these other things should be ran by the private sector. Okay? For communists, they want everything to be socialist. The goal of a communist is to create a socialist state in which more and more of the economy become captured by the state, taken over, and then ran by the state to where all the economy, I'm talking about coffee shops, the tissue box right now that I have when I'm blowing my nose, the tablecloth, everything made by the state, and the state runs the entire economy in theory, and that would have that ability to do that. Okay, and so that would be at its purest theory. Again, China is not doing it that way right now, but so that's the difference, if that makes any sense. Now, so in Europe, and from then till now, had many socialists that were anti-communist, that didn't want a revolution. They didn't want to change the social order in that extreme. They were talking about the reformists. That's the better way to say it. Okay, that's still the case. Tony Blair, as I mentioned, who was a part of the Labour Party in Britain, calls itself socialist, but they're non-Marxist. They don't believe in Karl Marx ideas. They're not calling for revolution, and they believe in the free market still overall. Okay, I hope that clarifies things, and please feel free to ask me if you want clarification. Karl Marx, with Frederick Engels is more or less his PR guy. Engels is a great writer in his own case, and he's an interesting person in his own right. And he gets marginalized quite a bit, but ultimately he reiterates what Karl Marx said. He definitely, ironically or interestingly enough, Engels was an industrialist, or he inherited industrial factories from his family. He had the money to always support the misanthropic and cranky Karl Marx, who was kind of an eccentric, but a man. Karl Marx was an academic. He wasn't of the working class, but he wasn't wealthy. He was a well-educated, often poor man that came out of a German philosophical tradition. Okay, so Karl Marx, German philosopher, coming out of a German philosophical tradition. So essentially, you could say this: he was influenced by American and British economics, French socialism, and German philosophy. Okay, and he combines those three into a system that is very sophisticated, even if you disagree with it. So sophisticated and complex that it requires like a separate. You could take an entire course on Karl Marx, and you will have big debates with Marxists, people who follow Marx's ideas, on what he actually meant, intended, or thought. Okay, now there's really two parts to Karl Marx. There's the A part and there's the B part. Marx had a theory about history, which he's deriving from German philosophy, and he is analyzing the economy, utilizing what he learned from economics, and he's making an interpretation of history and economics. The B part of Karl Marx is him having a solution to he believes that history is moving in a particular direction, and he advocates a kind of political solution or ideology to rectify what he sees to be the problem in the present time that he is existing in. And the B part is the revolutionary the part calling for overthrowing your government, the dangerous part that shocked the world, the part that made him the evil of the threat, okay, to civilization, the industrial world, to all the capitalists, okay. But then there's the A part. Now, many historians use Karl Marx still for their history, a historic model. I had a Republican Tea Party member. She didn't advertise that. I just knew her in my grad school. And for the most part, she was comfortable with Marxist historians because Marxist historians look at economics as a factor into explaining changes and societal shifts. There's a focus on the economy and culture through that way, which is influenced by a certain approach that Karl Marx took sociologically to breaking down society, okay? That doesn't require you to take on a particular set of beliefs. I hope you understand that. Okay? The B part would not be a part of where she's at all, okay? Now, so sometimes you'll hear people accuse, college students of being radicalized by their Marxist professors. I just want to say, yes, there happens to be a lot of professors that, are Marxists. I had them, okay? And a lot that are anti-Marxist, actually. But what you're going to find out as I'm going into more and more explaining, and I know I'm kind of taking the long route here because I want to kind of tackle a lot of things as we get into this discussion because of all the historical baggage around this discussion, that Karl Marx has a sophisticated system that is worth addressing, whether you believe it or not. My friends who are business majors that went to college and are full-on capitalists and not in any means socialist had to study him and realize the importance of studying Karl Marx for his basically a part of his system. And we'll talk about dialectical materialism, which also they should be talking about historical materialism. I'll incorporate that in the next lecture.